Three, two, one. This is Nick,
And this is Amanda.
and this is the Performance Plate Podcast, where we give you bite-sized bits of information based on nutrition and exercise science to improve your overall performance. Welcome back to another episode of the Performance Plate Podcast. On this episode, we are going to talk about sleep. And yes, I know everybody preaches how important it is, and you need to sleep, you need to recover, you need to sleep. But we're going to talk about like why you may not be having good sleep, why you're struggling, and some ways to help yourself sleep better. Now, before we get into that though, let's ask Amanda, how many hours of sleep does she get, and what is her method to sleep nicely, we'll
Oh,
say.
sleep is my love language. Okay.
I agree. I have to agree with you on that. It's 7 p.m. and I'm not doing anything. I'm okay with sleep until the next morning.
Oh,
It's fine.
yes. Yes. Absolutely. So right now I probably sleep around like 7, 8 hours a night.
Solid.
Um, and you want to hear my nighttime routine?
Sure, why not?
Okay. So it's nothing too fancy, but I do put my blue light blockers on like after, 7 p.m. if I'm still
Hmm.
doing work. And then at least a half hour before I go to bed, like all electronics are off. So like no phone, no TV, none of that. And I'll read or I'll do something that's like I'll like color sometimes or I don't know. It's just kind of like my time to like chill, skincare,
Yes.
get
Do
ready for
your
bed.
thing.
Yeah, just hang out.
Well, that's one
So
of the things.
nothing too fancy, but everything electronic goes away, or I'll hang out with my roommate.
Perfect. Well, that's
Yeah,
one of the things we'll get into later on of a little tip they talk about to help yourself sleep better. If you can't fall asleep after a certain amount of time, you do a mundane task like coloring or,
right. I
basic.
actually I recommend a lot because a lot of times with like prior to going to bed, people use their phones right up until that moment because
Mhm.
they don't know how to like calm down mentally.
Yeah.
So it's kind of just like another distraction up until going to sleep. So a really nice transition can be doing something with your hands, something that you have to actively concentrate on
Mhm.
so that you're not just trying to sit there in your silence or like because some people also have trouble reading a book too. So
It's true.
yeah.
It's true.
Yeah.
I stopped reading at night because I would never get my books done because I fall asleep while reading. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm
That
like, all right,
happens
I'm gonna read 10
sometimes.
pages before bed, and I
Yeah.
get 3 pages in and I pass out. I'm like, this is gonna take me 2 years to finish this 200-page book because 3 pages a night is not gonna cut it.
Yeah. So what's your nighttime routine?
If I stick to it, I'd say 4 to 5 days a week. I'm pretty consistent with my nightly
Uh-huh.
routine. But I'll be blatantly honest. Sometimes I'm just so tired, I just fall asleep. On the couch watching TV, put the sleep timer on. And I do have a rule though, if I do fall asleep on a couch or anywhere where it's not my bed, I stay there the whole night. I don't wake up my sleep schedule. Like I don't wake up halfway through and then go upstairs to bed. It's like, no, you're already here.
Yeah, you
You're
have to
sleeping the night
stay.
there. Yeah. You're
Yeah.
staying there. Like even if I like wake up at 2 a.m. and like to roll over, I won't I'll just roll over literally on the couch and stay there. Um, because I know you don't want to break up your sleep schedule to go to bed and do all that stuff. Then it may wake up things and things like that. But so normally, this is a nice little fun fact of me. I have to put in my mouth guard because I grind my teeth at night. So my
I
night,
am technically prescribed a mouth guard too, but I have not. I mean, I don't
uh,
grind my teeth anymore,
well,
but I never used it because it was so uncomfortable.
you get used to it. I'll be honest with you. Like the first couple days, I've never had braces, so I never had that feeling of something tight on my teeth. So like the first couple days when my teeth felt like tight and like weird, I was like, oh, this is weird. And then my
Yeah.
dentist like, you'll get used to it. But I'm so neurotic with my teeth, so I'm like, and he's like, well, they're grinding away, and they're not. That's not good. And I was like, oh, and I was like, is it the damage like irreversible? He's like, well, yeah, like if you keep damaging your gums the way it is, it can't like they're not just gonna fix themselves. I'm like, ah, oh, damn it. All right. So maybe I should wear the night guard. So brush my teeth, put my night guard in. That also helps with nighttime snacking, I will just say, because once
Take
I
a
brush
pic for our Instagram page so that people can see the real Nick.
no. Because you can't even notice it's in. Like, my mouth's closed.
Yeah.
My cheeks look fuller. But yes, when I do message my friends or like voice message or talk to Leanne, you can tell it's like I got a lisp. Uh,
Yeah.
I do that, then whatever I do after that, I usually just go downstairs, watch some more TV for like 30 minutes, put my phone away, no more phone after usually around 9 o'clock, 9:30. Um, then I go upstairs and I literally just lay down.
Yeah,
Mine's simple. It took me years to be able to fall asleep, like very years to be able to just like fall
me
asleep
too.
consistently. But once I took a TV out of my room, we have a TV in our room, but because Leanne needs it to fall asleep. So how that works is like I kind of just go to bed first sometimes.
Yeah.
And then when she turns it on, I don't even wake up from it. So that my night routine is literally just putting my night guard in, taking out my contacts, and decompressing.
Yeah, well, that's what I was gonna say, like, mine's nothing crazy either. It's not like I have this, like, 10-step process, but it's
No.
just the fact that it's focused on decompressing. So, like,
Yes.
anything that's stimulating is put away. I'm
Hmm.
not dealing with anything after that time because I don't need that before I go to bed.
Hmm.
I was the same way too, where I didn't sleep for years, and I would fall asleep at, like, 4 o'clock in the morning and then have to get up at 6 or 7, and it was miserable. It was the worst thing, so I really, really feel for people that can't sleep and have trouble getting quality sleep even, which is why I'm excited to do this podcast today.
Hmm. It's the quality of sleep is a huge thing too, because it's like no matter how I just talked to a patient yesterday. He was like, dude, I can sleep. I feel like I'm well rested. I'm doing all this stuff and still not sleeping well. And I
Yeah.
think we need to definitely bring to light why that can happen for people because you can
Mhm,
do all the right things, but usually you're doing all the right things at night.
mhm.
But what are you doing in the day?
Right, exactly, and there's also yes, what's going on in the day, you have to think about long-term use of any stimulators, so, like,
Hmm.
stimulant medications, that might disrupt circadian rhythm, that could be medication, like prescribed medication, it could also be something like, caffeine, alcohol, nicotine, even Adderall, right? Those can all affect circadian rhythm over time, depending on like when and how you use them. You also have to think about shift work, jet
Hmm.
lag, people that have irregular schedules where maybe they're working late one night and then early the next, that can throw someone off too. If you're, sometimes people, if you have a nurse, right, they're maybe doing like an one or two overnights a week, but that's enough to just offset the rest of the week.
Yep.
So that's another really big one. And then you have to think too about like the psychological component as well. So like if someone's dealing with a lot of stress and that tends to come up for them at night, okay, is that playing a role into this too? And like how do we then deal with that and support someone through that?
Hmm.
Um, there's also illnesses like restless leg syndrome, GERD, heartburn can even
Yeah.
have an impact on someone's ability to sleep well. And then of course sleep apnea, right? So there's a lot of different ways or different things that can play into that. But then also too, and this is the biggest thing that I see is blood sugar dysregulation. And how
Okay.
that's impacting our cortisol patterns and our release of melatonin and our release of cortisol, and then the quality of sleep we're getting throughout the night. And those are all things that, you could have the perfect nighttime routine, but if they're playing into
Yeah.
your circadian rhythm and they're throwing things off there, then you're still going to have trouble, one, maybe falling asleep, or two, staying asleep and getting good quality sleep and waking up rested. Um,
Makes
now
sense.
there's also, yeah, now there's also another piece of this too, because you, this is where this would be a separate conversation, but someone that had even nutrient deficiencies, so they're getting good quality sleep, but yet they're lacking energy the next day. Well, okay, how's their absorption of nutrients like iron and B vitamins?
Yeah.
Because that's probably, that could be playing into that too. And then you could also have something like hydration. So there's a difference between like fatigue
Yeah.
and poor quality sleep. Like this podcast is really for people that know that they need sleep support and they're not getting good quality sleep or they're having trouble falling asleep.
Hmm. Yeah, because there's so, like you said, there's so many different avenues we can go down with how to how to help your self sleep, but realistically, like there's so much going on behind the scenes that you don't know, like nutrient absorption, like you said,
Right.
glucose levels in the blood, all those different things can play a factor. We don't have time to delve into all of those because there's so much to
Yeah.
it. We just need to like, if you know you're one of those people that struggle with your sleep, struggle no matter what, you feel unrested.
Hmm.
Um, you hear it all the time, and so do I, because that's one of my like main questions, like with patients, how are you sleeping at night? And for me, it's more or less is the pain keeping you up, but once
Right.
through that pain and the high level athletes that I treat, how are you sleeping at night? And they're like, well, I get like 4 hours. I'm like, you're pushing your body to the limits. You're getting 4 hours. Like we should probably try somehow to help with that.
Hmm. definitely, and it becomes really tough if someone's not sleeping at night due to physical pain.
Mhm. Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
So it's the catch 22 of healing. You need
Mhm.
sleep at night to heal, but you can't sleep at night because you're in pain. So you're like, how the hell? And that's why people go down that rabbit hole of like some people take painkillers to go to bed at night
Yep.
and those things, and we don't want that. Especially if I'm talking to you as a patient of mine, you're like, oh, I take 4 Advil to sleep at night. And it's like, well, hold on.
Mhm.
You need that, or are you scared you're gonna wake up in pain? And they're like, well, a lot of times it comes out to I'm scared that I'm gonna wake up in pain. I'm like, well, let's try not to take it and see what happens.
Mhm. Right.
Um,
And let's see first.
yeah,
Yeah.
because what's the worst that can happen? You do wake up in pain, okay, no big deal. It's not like anything's no one's fractured anything or caused any crazy type of damage when they slept.
Right, right.
You know? Uh,
Well
yeah.
well,
Don't
when I was little,
oh my gosh. Of course.
for some
What
reason, like, I was playing at the park the day before, and I woke up the next morning with a dislocated elbow. Partially dislocated, not like
okay. What? How?
I don't know. I
In your
don't know.
sleep, I guess.
I woke up, like, screaming, crying in pain, and by
Okay.
the time I got to the hospital, I guess I had set back in place, so but it wasn't fully dislocated, but
Okay.
it was
That's
something
amazing.
like like offset in my sleep.
Maybe you were asleep. We'll add that caveat to it. If you're a sleepwalker, then maybe you possibly
I was
do.
not I don't maybe I was sleepwalking. I don't know. Anyway,
That's oh,
that aside.
yes. So what we want to really harp on though is a lot of us, me and Amanda both work with people and they struggle with sleep because we're both trying to help people be better versions of themselves and guide them to better things. So we see this a lot. And it's a frustrating thing because people are like, I just don't know how to sleep. And there's
Yeah.
no one way to sleep, you know? Like we kind of said earlier in the conversation, what you do earlier in the day can kind of mitigate where your sleep patterns may be. And there's little things where you can kind of make changes here and there to try and help yourself. And
Mhm.
we mentioned one earlier. Amanda said she colors or does some type of mundane task. So we can kind of break that down and talk about how, like, we've all been there. You go, it's like, all right, I got to go to bed. It's 10 o'clock at night. I got an early day tomorrow, whatever it is. And you just lay in bed and stare at the ceiling. Now, first off, try your best not to overstimulate yourself and pick up your phone again if you can't fall asleep. That's like a
That's the biggest one. I
it's a big
truly
no-no.
believe it. Like, I think some people are still shocked. I mean, it's been years for me at this point. I haven't my phone, like, doesn't come in my room at night,
Mhm.
but people are shocked by that. They're like, "You leave
Mhm.
it outside the room?" And I'm like, "Yeah." Like, well, I guess it was hard at first, but now it's just I wanna do that. Like, I can't wait to get away from it,
Yeah. Oh, there's
because
no need for it in
it's
your phone in your room, realistically.
you don't need it in your room. No, I mean,
Yeah.
the only one time I had a client that was like, "Well, I kinda want it just in case anything ever happened. I live alone." And I was like, "Yeah, obviously, that makes sense."
Mhm.
But it's not even so much the blue light, it's like the stimulation
Yeah.
of everything that you're seeing on there. Like, I don't think we realize how that affects us
Mhm.
in small ways that turn big. Like, you see one thing on social media and all of a sudden you're, worried about something, or you're
Yeah.
comparing yourself to someone or thinking about something entirely, you know,
Mhm.
it's not even related to what you're doing right now, and it just totally takes that
Yeah.
piece away from you. Um, so that's why, like, there's a difference, and I always say this too, because sometimes people do like to use the TV to fall asleep at night,
Mhm.
and there's a difference between watching a show and just enjoying that show and being present with the show and enjoying it and taking your mind off of other things versus being on your phone, talking to a million people, scrolling through Instagram, opening up this app, opening up that app. Like, those are 2 different things.
Mhm.
So, that's something to think about too, and, like, you could also always get blue light glasses too. Now there's what we I think we need to talk about too is, like, the difference between the person that has trouble falling asleep and then the person that, is waking up in the middle of the night and why that might be. Because if
Yes.
you're someone that has trouble falling asleep, you definitely wanna think more about sleep hygiene and some of the stuff that we were just talking about in terms of,
Mhm.
like, blue light glasses or, like, really letting your mind calm down before you go to bed, doing a mundane task. Um, you know, stop like, for some people, it's better to stop eating earlier just due to, like, blood sugar regulation and things like that.
Yes. Yeah.
Um, so, again, you wanna also think about melatonin production,
Mhm.
and that's where melatonin supplementation actually might be helpful, is if you're someone that has trouble falling asleep. If you're someone that's waking up in the middle of the night, it's probably not melatonin, it's probably more so cortisol dysregulation,
Yeah.
and you wanna think about hormones, so this is where, like, sex hormones can come into play, cortisol can come into play, adrenal health comes into play, um, and what's going on there, and that's where, like, the blood sugar component really ties in,
Mhm.
because sometimes what happens is, like, if your blood sugar's off and things are kinda going up and down, it's also affecting cortisol because those 2 go hand in hand.
Mhm.
You know, when we, um so anyway, sorry, there's so many different ways I can go with this. Um, but was gonna be the biggest thing that I see, and that's what you were kinda getting at before, is you can influence that by the way that you spend the rest of your day. So by
Mhm.
eating balanced meals, by getting enough protein and fiber, by stopping the grazing and the snacking all day long,
Yes. Yeah.
um, by
Well,
making sure you're eating enough
mhm.
because I see a lot of people where it's because they're not eating enough versus they're eating too much, right? Because
Mhm.
both of those things can affect blood sugar.
Yeah. Well, think about it this way too, is if you're somebody who suffers from, we'll say, waking up in the middle of the night, and Amanda's
Mhm.
saying it can deal with blood sugar and cortisol levels and because they're closely related. Look at like, all right, not many people at night have, if they want to snack at night, quote unquote, rarely is it something, rarely. Some people do, but rarely is it something that's fibrous or have
Yeah,
protein.
yeah, yeah.
You know what I mean? It's usually a quick snack like a cookie or, something that's palatable that tastes really good. And you're like, oh, this is kind
Mhm.
of nice. However, those things also, because they're usually pretty sweet and the way they are, your blood sugar gets dysregulated from taking those in pretty quickly because you got highs and lows when you have that food stuff coming in. Where like that may be something
Higher
to look at.
glycemic response, yeah, with
Yeah.
no protein or fiber to buffer it. Yep.
And that's something to think about if you're noticing at night, like, oh, I'm having trouble staying asleep or whatever. Maybe you're snacking too late at night,
Mhm.
you know?
Yeah, and it'll affect some people more than others for sure,
Mhm.
like, know if you're one of those people.
Oh, yeah.
Now also too, like, why are you so hungry close to bed?
Well, that's what you said
That's
earlier.
another
Are you
really big
eating
thing.
enough? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly, like, I remember, I mean, again, personal example, years ago, I would be so hungry prior to bed, so I would snack a bunch because I wasn't eating enough during the day, so then it would totally throw off my sleep,
Mhm.
and it was like this nasty cycle where once you start eating enough throughout the day, you shouldn't be that hungry after dinner.
Yeah.
Like, you
Yeah.
should be eating enough so that you're satiated, and then
Yes.
maybe you have a little snack with some protein and fiber to really balance that out, um,
And
and that could be
you posted a really good thing about that with snacking at night. If you're one of those,
yes,
it wasn't purely about snacking at night, but if you are a snacker, bring intentional thought to it. Because at night,
yeah,
if you're bored, we can snack. Now, if you're hungry, that's one thing. Then you have to take a look at the earlier in the day of what the heck's going on. Maybe you're not eating enough. If you're just snacking because you're bored, then that's a different thing. You can do other things like a mundane task as opposed because watching TV and decompressing that way. But if you're not actually decompressing with it and you can't
mhm,
sit still and like not sit still
yes, yeah, you're
physically, but like
actually touching on something really important here because TV is disassociating in nature, so if you're someone that's constantly snacking at night and you're trying to break that habit, but then you're also doing another habit that triggers the
Mhm.
habit you're trying to break,
Yes.
it's really tough.
Mhm.
So, it might even be better for you to, like, stop watching TV and maybe try a yoga practice instead, go for a walk if it's, safe to do in your neighborhood at night, like,
Mhm.
eh you're right, doing another coloring, doing something else. I have clients that like Legos, like,
Yeah, yeah.
anything really, you know what I mean? And then eventually you be able to watch TV without associating that with snack time because
Mhm.
it's, sometimes habits are so linked together that it takes time to break them. But that's a really good point. Yeah.
Yeah, we wanna watch those things.
Mhm.
Now, since we can wait, let's go down the rabbit hole of caffeine now.
Yeah.
Where, as we all know, caffeine can be your friend, kind of, depending, and all this stuff, but definitely you should not be having caffeine after about, I think it's 3 o'clock. You know better than I do, but usually after about 3 o'clock, depending on how
Yeah.
much it is and all that stuff.
So
Um, do you
the
see?
half-life oh, go
Yeah,
ahead.
I was gonna say go into the half life, but then do you see? From what I know, I feel like the caffeine thing is it doesn't it's people have trouble falling asleep from the caffeine thing, not the whole staying asleep thing.
Depends if it's intertwined with blood sugar or not.
Well, okay, yes, that makes
Yeah.
a good point because if
Yeah,
it's a
and
yeah,
and, like, anxiety and stuff too. Because again, if you're, like, can't fall asleep due to a racing mind, then
mhm,
you wanna think about neurotransmitters. What's
yeah,
going on there, you
you
know?
don't want to put caffeine into
GABA,
your brain.
serotonin, right,
Yeah,
exactly. What's happening? Because, like, coffee and anxiety do not mix well together, so if you tend to be an anxious person, I would really recommend you look at your caffeine intake first and foremost. Um,
we've all been there.
yes, absolutely, absolutely. It's so easy to relate all of this to personal
Oh, of course.
experience.
We've all been there. Like, there's amount
Yeah.
of times where I'm like, "Oh, let me have a cup of coffee," and I've already worried about 7 different things, and now those 7 different things turned into huge mountains, and I'm like, my heart's racing, and I'm like,
Yeah, heart's racing, nothing feels good, you're like,
yeah.
"What is going on?"
You're like, "I
Yeah,
think I need to go for a walk, but I can't go for a walk because 'cause I'm so anxious because I need to get all this stuff done," and it's a vicious cycle. So
yeah,
if if that's what's happening to you, that afternoon coffee may not be the best decision to help your sleep patterns, we're just
yeah,
saying.
or the morning one sometimes, but,
That too.
the half-life of caffeine is 6 hours, so what
Mhm.
that means is half of that has left your system in 6 hours, which is why
Yeah.
you don't really feel the effects after that time. Now, some people tend to we've actually done a podcast on this, the
Mhm.
genetics behind caffeine and how
Yes.
some people are faster metabolizers than others,
Yep.
and how that can impact someone's ability to tolerate it. So, some people might be able to drink it a little bit later in the day and not I'm saying this in quotations, not be affected by it because I think it's bullshit, but,
Yeah. Well,
so
everyone says it doesn't affect me, and I
doesn't
will tell you
affect
right
me,
now.
and then they're like, why don't I feel, well rested the next day?" I'm like,
Well
"Hmm." So, to play it safe, I like to recommend not drinking it after 1 o'clock.
Mhm,
Um, if you really are struggling and you're really hitting fatigue if you stop drinking coffee and you are hitting, like, some walls later on in the day, your cortisol is probably dropping, right? I mean, you're not what happened this is what usually happens if you look at a cortisol map,
mhm,
4-point map, you see it drop down in the afternoon, and then it starts to rise closer to bedtime. So if
mhm,
someone's super tired late afternoon, they're like, "Damn, I can't wait to go to bed tonight." Then they actually go to get in bed, and they're sitting there with their eyes wide open, and they're like, "Why am I awake right now? I've been exhausted all day."
mhm,
And that repeats itself. So by cutting out the coffee, addressing the other, factors that might be playing into the cortisol dysregulation, you can start to regulate that cycle, but it does take some discomfort sometimes. So, like, if someone was eliminating caffeine and they were having crashes in the afternoon, something that's a little bit less caffeinated, like green tea or black
mhm.
tea, um, or even doing an adrenal cocktail. So, having a little bit of orange juice. So, it's a little bit of orange juice, it's electrolytes basically,
Yeah.
help your adrenal glands. A little bit of orange juice, a little bit of coconut juice. You could do a little bit of Celtic sea salt, and then collagen to offset the uh, sugar
Okay.
or the carbs in that,
Mhm.
um, especially for someone that is dealing with like higher blood sugar or
Mm.
and whatnot.
That's a
Um,
good little tip right there. That's a good
it
nugget.
is.
If you're
It is.
struggling.
It works well with a lot of. I use it with a lot of clients. I like it myself sometimes.
Yeah.
Um, Yeah, definitely.
That's
So that's those are some ways also too, like those afternoon crashes, if you can get up from your work desk and get some fresh air, step
mhm.
outside, go to the bathroom, drink some water, drink your water because
Yes.
it's probably playing into fatigue. We're
Yeah.
gonna talk about that on the next podcast, but
Yes.
that's a really big one. Like replace that coffee with water, with
Mhm,
like another hydrating liquid. That can be helpful. And then again, if you are someone that is having trouble falling asleep. I'd put this on my story the other day too. I think it's important because not a lot of people know this, and many people misuse melatonin.
mhm,
Um, but that can be helpful if you're having trouble falling asleep.
mhm.
So the body actually releases 0.2 milligrams
Yeah.
of melatonin, where like melatonin supplements are sold up to like 20 milligrams.
Mhm,
And doses that high really aren't doing anything for sleep. You really want to mimic what the body does naturally. So use like if you're going to use it, start with a dose as low as 0.3 milligrams. And then if you need a little more, you can use a little bit more. But really start low because you'll probably find more success with lower doses. Higher
mm.
doses of melatonin are it's a really powerful antioxidant. So it can be helpful for other scenarios,
Yeah.
but those high doses aren't necessarily better
Ah,
for falling
see,
asleep.
that's just I don't want to go too far into it because we need to stay on sleep topic.
Yeah.
Like that is the epitome of our brains. Well, it's more, so it's got to work better. Well, no, they're like
Yes. Yeah.
200 milligrams of
More
melatonin.
is better.
Yeah, well, exactly. Because I was talking to
Yeah.
someone the other day at the gym. He's like, "Oh, I had trouble sleeping." I was like, "Oh, you could try melatonin, like getting to sleep."
Yeah.
And he's like, "I already take like whatever it is, the max one they make. I already take that, and it does nothing for me." Good to know that I could have been like, well, maybe you should start with like the bare minimum
Yeah.
intake and do that. But it shows like you always want to, whenever you're trying to do something, you always want to give the body its chance to do its best work by itself
For sure.
without
Absolutely.
over supplementing. So that caffeine that you take in the afternoon because you're tired and fatigued, you want to give your body the best chance to regulate yourself with energy on its own. So that adrenal cocktail may be something much better. Or like Amanda said, drink some water. A lot of times too, I used to think this girl was a crazy human. She used to wake up, have a cold glass of water in the morning. That was it, and she was energized for the day. And I was like, "You're a nutcase. You need coffee." Um,
I can do that.
no, I know that this was
Oh.
like when I was like, I think I was like 22 when I met this girl. I
Oh.
was like, she's crazy, or maybe I was 23. I was like, "You're nuts." She's like, "No, I don't need coffee." So that's when I was drinking like energy drinks and pre workouts and
Yeah,
all
yeah,
the
yeah.
caffeine possible. Um, so like Amanda said as well, watch your sleep hygiene, meaning like those little tactics. Hydration is huge in that aspect. You can also drink a
Mhm.
cup of water. You may notice you'll wake up from that. If you really, really are having trouble with that whole caffeine thing, like, oh, I need it. All right, black tea, green
You're
tea. Are,
addicted and you need to stop drinking it.
well, yeah, exactly.
Sorry.
You're
Just
having addicted.
just cut it out cold turkey. You're gonna be miserable for 2 weeks, and then I promise you'll feel better.
Yes, which
A
is
good challenge,
it
because
is. I
usually
mean,
usually the people that are really addicted to caffeine are also the ones that like challenges,
yeah,
and also
true.
the ones that like to go hardo mode, so
Yeah.
here's your opportunity to go hardo mode and cut it out clean
Yes.
turkey.
Yeah, definitely. So that's a huge factor to take into consideration. Like you probably need to just cut it out.
Yeah.
And then you can learn to maintain it and use it here and there if you need it. It'll work better. The effectiveness will be better. So you don't feel like you need as much anyway when you cut it out. So it's a
Yeah,
very,
it will. It'll become more effective, you won't need as much, and honestly, you'll get more use out of it too.
yeah.
Yeah.
Um, so we want we don't want to say like at the same time just don't don't do certain things, but try to take note of what you're doing throughout the day. And one of a good thing you can do is if you want to do this fun routine is Amanda has her clients track, but if you don't want to track, you can just do like, all right, I'm always tired at 3 p.m. What did I do? And you start like going back to see, or did I have a stressful day at work? So you can kind of understand like a sleep journal kind of what
Mhm.
led up to your sleep for that day so you can understand different ways of all right, I know when these things happen my sleep may be off, so you don't get frustrated with oh I can't sleep. Sometimes you're going to have a shitty night's sleep. I did
Yeah,
last
it just
night.
happens,
It
absolutely, and
happened.
that's normal from time to time.
Yeah,
Yeah, and also, we're not saying that coffee is bad, I'm not,
yeah.
but if you're reliant on it and you're not getting good sleep, like,
It, it's time to make a
you gotta
change.
do something about it. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah. So I mean we could sum up this whole podcast with the sleeping thing very quickly where like that
You know
ending.
what, too? Even I know we're gonna go over a little bit, but I just wanna also say this because it's so simple and people
Mhm.
forget about it. Make sure your room is dark.
Yeah.
Have use curtains, use a night mask if you need to, put earplugs in, use a sound machine for $20 from Amazon.
Mhm.
Like, if you turn your alarm clock down so there's no light, unplug things. People don't realize how much like our eyes sensors, right? They can sense light coming in. We
Yes.
are humans, so we are meant to wake up with the sun and go to bed when it gets dark out. Like we are
Yes.
biologically wired to do that.
Yeah.
We're so stimulated with light all the time that our body's confused. So
Mhm.
make sure that your room is dark. Even pets on the bed, that's another big one.
Yeah.
Like if they're big and you can't move and they're making you hot, give them a little thing like you know what? You can buy one of those little stands. What
Yeah.
is like something for the end of the bed, make it comfy, put blankets on it, put their little bed on it so they're even with you.
Yeah.
And that way, you can have the whole bed to yourself.
Mhm.
Like, simple things like that are we forget about that might be playing into poor quality sleep too,
Yeah.
because so often wanna jump to, like, "Oh, what's going on metabolically," right? But
Yes.
also,
Yeah.
what's happening in your bedroom?
Yeah.
Like and also too, There's a saying, like, your bed is for the 2 S's, I actually forget what the exact quote is, but sleep and sex, nothing
Mhm.
else. Don't
True.
work from there,
Yeah.
don't do anything else from there. Just leave
Well,
it for those 2 things.
because your mind associates that stuff with that. So like when, yeah,
Yes.
if you work in your bedroom, guess or in your bed, your mind's gonna start associating like, oh, I could do work in here. You
Yep,
want it to associate bedroom with sleep. So when
yep.
you get in there, your brain's like, okay, we are here to sleep. And
Mhm.
you're right with the 100% with the curtains, light,
Yes.
random things like an alarm clock. Like they even say, like studies are saying,
Cooling
like,
sheets. Yeah.
yeah, put away the alarm clock, eliminate it. Yes, people need to wake up with alarms and all that stuff. That's fine, but like
Just turn
turn
it
it
down.
upside down.
Yeah.
Don't let it don't let it shine on you because how many times have you closed your eyes at night and you're like, you still see the light? You still
Yes.
do.
Well, your eye receptors, like,
Yeah.
they right.
Yes. They're
You
meant to
don't
take in info.
exactly, exactly, like, think about when you wake up in the morning, if you're someone that I mean, I know if I feel the light from the, window come in the morning, like, I wake up from that. It's not like I open my eyes, see the light, and then I wake up. I'm
Yeah.
sleeping, my eyes are shut,
Yep.
but the room is light, so I wake up
Yeah. The
because yeah,
It's true.
that's
The best
scary.
example I can give of that is when we were in the Grand Canyon hiking, whitewater rafting down it. There's no electricity. It's pitch
Mhm.
black at night. So you go to bed when it's dark. Guess when everyone woke up?
When it was light.
When it was light out. Some people woke up a little bit before based on their circadian rhythm, but like the sun was still coming up because light was showing. So
Yeah,
like your body is meant to follow these patterns. We offset it because we have electricity, we have things like that to
yes,
allow us to stay up later at night. But you do want to remember those simple things. So
yes,
realistically, what Amanda and I are saying is that like you need to look at these minor changes before, as always, we always say, look at the minor changes, the things that you're doing in your daily habits before
yes.
jumping down this rabbit hole of like, I'm just a shitty sleeper. I'll never sleep again. My
Okay, also,
cortisol's
you gotta be careful with that language. Like,
yeah.
I mean, this
Yeah.
podcast could go on for 2 days because
It will.
if you are constantly telling yourself, "I don't sleep, I'm an insomniac, like, I just can't relax." Yeah,
Mhm.
you're not gonna be able to. You gotta
Yeah.
start to change that identity.
Yeah.
And actually and that's a really big thing with insomnia. I think actually Mar brought it up when we had her on our
Mhm.
podcast.
Yeah.
Um, yeah,
She did. She was like, "Hey, you gotta change how you talk to yourself."
yeah,
Um,
yes.
if you go into your nightly routine or you go to bed at night, "I hope I sleep tonight." Well, guess
Mhm.
what? You're gonna sit up all night wondering if you're gonna sleep tonight.
Yes, and also too, if you're laying there and you don't fall asleep by, 20 minutes in, get up and walk
Yeah.
around, go sit on the couch, read on the
Yes.
couch, like do something else rather
Mhm.
than lay there in pain and trying to sleep. Same thing if you wake up in the middle of the night and you're trying to really regulate that, get up out of bed if it's taking you longer than 15, 20 minutes to fall back
Yep.
asleep.
Yeah. That's a huge thing they say to do is because you
Yeah,
want
it's
to.
important.
Because if you just lay there trying to fall asleep, you're not gonna fall asleep.
Nope.
Because then all your once your mind starts racing again, then all the thoughts of the day come in,
Yes.
all the things you have to do come in, and it's not
And here's the other thing too, take the pressure off of it. So
Mhm.
you're resilient, you'll be fine if you don't sleep a couple nights, okay? Like you sit there and you start to stress about not sleeping. Oh my God, I'm gonna be so tired tomorrow. Tomorrow's gonna suck. I have so much to
Mhm.
do tomorrow. That's only gonna make it worse. So,
Yeah.
okay, you know what? I'll survive. I'll be fine if I don't sleep. I'm resilient. I'll be
Yeah.
good.
You
No
will.
problem. Like
Exactly.
it's simple things like that really, really go a long way.
You'll be okay. You'll be
Yes.
okay. So this has been a wonderful conversation about sleep, Amanda. To sum it all up is first off, look at throughout your day. Maybe there's some little habits you can change. Something so simple as turning your alarm clock over. Make sure at night, as you heard Amanda and I's routine are very basic, is really just about decompressing and putting away the thoughts for the day. So
Mhm.
whatever that means for you to put your way thoughts for the day, if it's just writing all the stuff you have to do down for tomorrow so you have it so you don't think about it anymore, that's one way to do it. There's so many different ways. And then, yeah, if you're someone who's having trouble fall asleep, use little things. If you're noticing that in the middle of the night things are going weird and you keep waking up, there may be some blood sugar regulation that you need to think about. Maybe look at your nightly routine of if you're snacking and all of those things. But these little tips should help you fall asleep. And obviously, if you need help with sleep advice or things like that, Amanda and I are always willing to talk more about anything related to health and wellness and all that fun stuff.
Yes.
So until
Awesome.
next time, Amanda's always a good conversation, as always. And if you're listening on Spotify or Apple, please like, subscribe, tell your friends, help us grow the pod, and do all that.